from citizens. Wish to speak, please approach the microphone and state your name and address. Have any materials to pass out, please give them directly to the clerk of council. Comments as brief as possible. Hearings from citizens is for us to listen to you and your neighbors. It's unlikely that we will make any remarks immediately after you speak. Reflect on your comments. Sometimes we do revisit an issue in miscellaneous business. The clerk of council will notify you when 3 minutes has passed, and at that point, please wrap up your presentation. Importantly, that's all treat each other calmly and with respect. Committee reports. Councilperson Lee Zerwanka, chairperson.
Jamie, please read resolution number 2021-21 by title only.
A resolution confirming the designation of depositories and authorizing the city manager to enter into depository agreements.
Move to adopt resolution number 2021-21.
Second.
Any discussion?
One question. That we dividing our fund between the Fifth Third and the Huntington Bank. Just want to know how much proportionally, how much money we divide.
You're asking how much money between each bank? Almost all of it is, Fifth Third. Huntington's just a backup.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Jamie, please call the roll.
Councilman Capell?
Yes.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider? Yes. Councilwoman Cole? Yes. Councilman Zerwanka?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari?
Yes.
Mayor Serkin?
Yes.
7 yeses.
All ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. Remove the planning and zoning committee, Vice Mayor Javari.
I have a motion. Motion setting the public hearing on Thursday, July 8th at 7:05 p.m. to consider a approval of a concept plan unit developed for 48.9 acre mixed use development on the former east campus of PNG site in the Blue Ash North Zone district. Is everybody okay? No.
Do we have a second?
You need a second? You want a second?
We need a second.
Yes, anybody second? Second. It's a verbal voting. If everybody agree, say yeah or no.
Well, is it going to be the same presentation that was at planning commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know necessarily.
Anybody says yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine.
If you say yes? Yeah. 7 yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
We're going to move to Public Works Committee, Councilperson.
Jamie, please read resolution 2021-22 by title only, please.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the Ham Plainfield Road roundabout construction project.
This here's the big one where you start tearing up and
We need
digging
a
up.
second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I move to adopt resolution 2021-22. I have a second one.
Well, yeah, second.
And I forgot how to voice. And this is for the big dig over on Plainfield and Hunt that everybody's been thinking about. Corey, can you add anything to this, please?
Sure. This is the beginning of the construction phase. So we spent the past, well, over 6 or 7 years working on this project, and we're finally now getting to construction and looking forward to it. So the end product will be a much improved corridor for everybody.
Any discussion on this?
Gordon, are there any sequencing that you can share yet? Or are they still kind of figuring out?
Sure. So once we approve the contract, we'll be meeting with the contractor. They will develop a schedule. The schedule we have as part of our engineering plan is to start with the Kroger roundabout first, and then the Plainfield and Hunt roundabout, followed by the Peppermill roundabout. And then, the work will be basically in that process. So typically utilities followed by the groundwork.
Any other discussion on this? Hey, please call roll.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin,
Yes.
7 yeses.
Jamie, please read resolution 2021-2023 by title only, please.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for professional architectural design, engineering, and landscaping services associated with the Town Square renovation design project.
Move to adopt resolution 2021-23.
Second.
Second.
This is the Town Square design project.
Sure, Gordon, you can add in wherever you'd like to. We went through an RFP process and brought in 2 great designers and had them come through and presented to a panel that we created amongst Public Works, Parks, staff, and then selected this group that you have in front of you, BHDP. They come to us for great merit. One of the elements that we really liked about them is they had some very good park design experience, specifically if you're familiar with Washington Park. They were behind that, which is a very good comparable for us. And the panel thought that they'd be a great choice for us to move forward with design services.
What's the amount of time that the design process will take before we ask them to look at? Just, I mean, roughly.
I would say probably within the next couple of months, we'd have the ability to come back to council. Gordon, do you have any thought about that in terms of, we haven't put together a timeline. At this point in time, we actually haven't met with the group. They presented a timeline to us. We assume that the design process will be throughout 2021. And at some point in time here in the near future, we can come back to council and present some additional ideas that come up through that.
Yeah, just to clarify, when he says come back to council, it'll probably be with some preliminary stuff before they do any more design, just to make sure we're okay with that. But it still wouldn't, wrap up and have what I would call to bid documents till something close to the end of the year. But something in which we're starting to take the previous plans and fine tune them and change them a little bit and tweak them. That's what would probably happen in the next few months.
Any other discussion on this? Jamie, please go roll.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole, yes, Mayor Serkin,
Yes.
7 yeses.
Jamie, please read resolution 2021-24 by title only, please.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an amended contract for the 2020 Blue Ash Bridge Repairs Project.
Move to adopt resolution 2021-24.
Second.
This is about repairing all our little bridges over on Lions Road. I never knew we had those issues, but we do. And Public Works is getting all those repaired. Gordon, do you have anything to add on to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I think for some, it doesn't look like a bridge in the context that most people would expect it. So these are the crossings that go over creeks, and they're typically concrete structures. But that's what this is for. This is for additional work. We originally bid it, and it was below our threshold. And when you get into some construction projects, you find the work is more intense than what you thought. So that's what this is for, additional work to repair those bridges.
Any other discussion on this?
A couple questions. One, which is directly related to this resolution, is can you kind of walk us through how an extra $22,000 of work was found on something that was originally a $43,000 project?
Sure. So these bridges were constructed in the 1960s, and so they're cast in place concrete. So over time, when we had a structural engineer analyze the bridges, and he gave us a preliminary report on what the status of the bridge deterioration was. And when we actually started doing the repairs, the actual damage and deterioration was deeper than what we had expected. So as you start removing it, you can't very well stop in the middle. So this is to finish the project and to its completion. So when you have deeper repairs, so that's what this money is for.
And then just my other question, which is probably a little more about policy and procedure than just necessarily about this resolution alone, is I remember probably around 10 years ago, Councilman Smitherman had raised a real big fuss over in Cincinnati about what he had noticed was going on, where a lot of times, at least in his opinion, a contractor would put in a artificially low bid to get the contract. And then after they got the contract, in came the change orders one after the next to increase the price of that. So I'm just kind of curious, like what processes or procedures do we have as a city to make sure that we don't get taken on, with that kind of, way of bidding?
Sure. So this project was competitively bid. So we bid it out against multiple contractors, and then we compare the line item bids for each of those contractors to make sure they're generally within the same area and scope. If we see any line items that are out of order or super high or super low, where we think the bid results may have been skewed, then we would have to address those. We did not find that in this case, and their actual bid results were based on our structural engineers' estimations for the actual deterioration and damages.
So then, like when we do bidding, we're not just looking at what the price is, we're looking at quality and completeness. And
Yeah,
stuff.
for road projects specifically, it's broken down into each line item. So curb, sidewalks, everything's broken down. And then we look at those quantities and we compare them across all the different contractors who bid on the project. And we also base it on the database created by ODOT for the same type of projects to know what should be the relative cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion on this?
Yeah, I'd like to think that we're not really following the Cincinnati model of governance anyways, but thanks for the
So
question.
that's always good to be on the lookout for.
That's would be in trouble.
Yeah, this is bluish, not Cincinnati. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Okay, please call roll.
Yes. Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole. Yes. Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin. 7 yes.
Yes.
That's all I have for tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Miscellaneous business.
Yeah, I'm going to yield to Brian and Gordon, who have a couple updates on some things going on, but I will just quickly give an update. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of the work going on Reed Hartman Highway north of town, where Duke is unfortunately still installing the pipeline. In our conversation with them, they've communicated to Gordon they're several weeks behind. And unfortunately, based on the appearance of their work and their elbow room that they use and the amount of collateral damage and what have you, I expect it's going to be, unfortunately, a very messy scene by the time they get down to Summit Park and what have you. So it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. Hopefully, we will stay on top of them in terms of getting restoration, what have you. But if you haven't been up there, it's pretty eye-opening to see that work. So with that, I'll let Brian give you an update on special events and what have you.
Thanks, David. I'm actually going to start with a quick little note about Parks and Rec staffing. We are feeling the same effects that a lot of the folks in the region and the nation are, with a little bit of challenges when it comes to hiring staff, specifically part-time. It's very competitive out there, and we are really feeling the effects of that this season. So just wanted to get that out in advance a little bit, so you kind of know where we're coming from on it. If you've been in the rec center, you can't walk through that space without seeing that we are in a lifeguard shortage at the moment. And typically, for example, we have about 45 lifeguards on staff. We're floating around 20 to 22 right now. So that's an example of me basically saying that you might see some changes in some of our operations this season based on that. And for example, pool hours, et cetera. If we do that, we'll try to do that with as minimal impact as possible to the actual product that we put out, of course, to the customer. Parks is feeling it as well too. We're about 40 to 50% full of our typical part-time staff, both in the mow and landscape positions. Parks and Rec in general is about 85% labor hours comes from part-time staff. So until at least we especially get a lot of the college students back, which usually takes place in late May, early June, the true summer staff, not the seasonal year-round staff that help us out in the spring and such. we're just feeling a tight challenge. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you notice the grass gets a little bit long before we get a chance to cut it, or we get flowers up a little bit later this year, pool operations, et cetera. And then also, as David mentioned, I'm sure everybody by now understands that DeWine changed some of the health orders, and we're analyzing those impacts on our special events and programming and facilities, et cetera. We're getting a lot of questions right now on the actual impact of events. And it just really what I wanted to mention is that red, white, and blue ash specifically will par for the course as we planned out earlier. That would be a fireworks only event. It's going to change, of course, the lack of needing perhaps to mask or distance, because we'll follow the state mandates that are in place at that point in time. Tuesday and Friday night concerts, we're still working that out. We'll work out all those elements to, basically the state mandate. And if those are less restrictive than we had planned in the past, it'll just be better for everybody, public and us, obviously running and operating those. Recreation Center, we meet early next week to talk about how we start putting back operations together to get back to a little bit more normalcy within the rec. And of course, staff, of course, we're gonna have to make some adjustments, all for the better, of course, that will be updated. When I say better, less restrictive environments for a lot of the staff. Just wanted to note that in case there was any questions specifically, we're working on it.
Hey, Brian, with regards to the lifeguards, do they have to be certified, or do we do the certification process?
So in the past, it was very common for anybody in the industry, including ourselves, to always have them get their own certificates. So that's definitely a challenge or a hurdle, especially to a 16, 17, 18-year-old coming into a job where I have to pay for a $400 or $500 certificate even to get into a job interview. We would hire based on merit in the past, but you'd also have 60 applicants for 20 lifeguards you'd be hiring in a year, so you could be picky. That doesn't cut it now in this market. So we actually have offered to pay for that for them. Tonight, Andrew Falk is over at the Recreation Center teaching the first class that is offered to free for, I think we have about 9 lifeguards that are offered positions at this point, pending them passing that class. So good question. But yeah, we have to obviously adjust to the market in order to get those folks in. But when wages, specifically part-time, are so competitive and they can go out and get, well, David passed me an article, if they were in Los Angeles, they can make $392,000 a year being a lifeguard. But if they can go to Amazon, Chipotle, et cetera, Dunkin' Donuts and make, $15, $16 an hour, that's what we're competing with now. And it's just getting a little tougher.
I think we may have some council people that want to go to California and become lifeguards or something.
Yeah, I'll share the article with you. It's very.
Brian, I do have a question about red, white, and blue ash. Are you anticipating, I know that there's going to be no concessions and so forth, but are you anticipating the need to do the parking restrictions, the no parking, having portable toilets? I'm guessing we won't have any of the shuttles and so forth, but how's your vision, or how are we preparing, even though there won't be the normal different things that are available?
Yeah, great question. We're preparing for a very large crowd. Without, of course, the amenities that we typically have in place. I think it would be ill-advised if we didn't assume that folks were going to say, this is our opportunity, 4th of July especially. We've been under, some restrictions for a long time, and now we can go out and have a good time. So a number of different details, and it's what you asked. We will not be doing shuttles, but we will be prepared to, the number of portalettes is not dropping, put it that way. We don't want to get caught in that position of, having that many people on site, whether we're feeding them and giving them beer and wine or drinks or not. So I think personally, the experience will be as enjoyable, if not more enjoyable, but obviously the amenities will be less. There's no concert. We won't have vendors on site other than likely just water and maybe even just soda, but it would be, intelligent of us. Actually, that idea came up in Public Works today. It'd be smart just to have obvious water stations because you're gonna have a lot of people showing up on site.
Right, especially if it's hot,
Yeah.
Will you be, I know I live in the Carpenter's Run area, and usually there's lots of signs saying no parking and so forth. Will you guys be doing that as well?
Yeah, our parking our parking and traffic plan really doesn't adjust at all. We're still planning on the same mass ingress and egress. In fact, probably now a little bit more condensed. Gordon, if you wanted to add anything to this, especially from the traffic aspect, and then of course PD was really close with us there. We don't plan on necessarily having to close any roads at any specific time, but we do expect the same size crowd. But now they're going to be coming in a condensed period of time, whereas before they would come at 4 and maybe stay until 11 o'clock. We're assuming folks will come a little bit later because there's less to do on site, so it could actually make that situation a little bit tougher to deal with. It's just in a shorter duration of time.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
But maybe one thing that could be done on the fireworks front is like, I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I remember how it would often work is, and you can't have 3 million people all crashing into one little fireworks spot in DC. And, you can imagine DC was quite a spot for fireworks. And what people would do is they would just drive they'd find their little spot 3 miles out, 4 miles out, 5 miles out to get a view of the fireworks over DC. And so if really all we're doing at the Red, White, and Blue Ash this year is fireworks, we may just be able to pitch to people that, hey, this time you don't all have to come into Summit Park. You can park a little further out at all the various spots around Summit Park and get just as good a view of the fireworks from there. And then that kind of helps with the traffic flow as well.
Great point. Actually, Jeff, that's in our communications plan. We're letting folks know way in advance that, it's not necessary to come into the park to view the fireworks. You can view them from a distance. We'll have a couple actually maps put together of spaces for businesses that permit us to utilize their parking lots. I think you'll probably see a lot more folks actually staying in those lots, perhaps even tailgating in a space like that. And so we're prepared with that. We actually are working with Public Works on making sure that, in the past, we've always taken care of those folks, and we insure them if they allow us to use their lot. We sign the lot so it's public parking, and then we will sweep and clean up that lot afterwards. But now we're actually adding trash receptacles to the lots because we're assuming folks will probably be doing just that.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one thing tonight. The city of Montgomery communicated that they are planning for their Independence Day parade this year. Initially, the communication was that they were planning for both options of a reverse parade. In light of Governor DeWine's recent announcement, I'm assuming that they will probably plan for their traditional parade. If council would like to participate this year, just let me know. Applications are due June 4th, so you have some time to let me know. And I can submit the application on your behalf. That's all I have.
And just to reiterate, since you mentioned that, we're still planning on a Memorial Day ceremony, but not the Memorial Day parade. The ceremony is still what, 11 or 11:30 or something?
7:30, I believe.
Yeah. So there'll still be a ceremony at Town Square, but no parade, even in spite of the change in the lifting of the restriction, which wouldn't be until after the parade anyways.
Well, will it be in the kind of the same general area that it normally has the stage set up?
Yeah, it would be very similar to what it's been in the past.
One question about the Montgomery parade. Do we decide that as a group, or Julie, do we let you know individually our feelings on participating? It's completely up to council if you want to discuss it together at some point, or you can let me know individually if you'd like to participate.
Of course. I did want to let you know that as part of the 4th of July, at that time, Duke Energy, with the pipeline construction, they will be closing off Glenda Milford Road at Plainfield into Evendale at the beginning of June. So that's going to be an additional issue. So their detour is down Plainfield Road to the south. So just want to let you know that. And then in addition, we had a pipe collapse this week. It was a large diameter stormwater pipe, 6-foot diameter in the area of Osborne Boulevard. And that pipe actually drains the area from the Hazelwood subdivision. So from Kenwood to Reed Hartman. And so we're currently trying to get that drained down and repaired. So I just want to let you know that's a pretty big issue. We're right now bypassing. If you drive down Kenwood Road, you'll see a bunch of pumps that are out there, and those are pumping water away from that area to our other storm systems. So I just want to let you know that's not something that was planned. And then, it's likely to be expensive.
So is Hazelwood draining normally? It's just.
Yes, it's actually in the woods, the wooded area of the valley behind Matthew 25 Ministries. We've drained it down. It was over probably 10 feet deep and it's now 3 feet. So we've been pumping it since Tuesday.
Yeah,
So-
just to reiterate, it's not an issue for Hazelwood.
Right.
It's a big ravine.
Down
next
the
to Matthew
line further
25
on.
there. So,
Correct.
but whenever Gordon tells me there's a pipe broken underground, it's normally an expensive venture. So hopefully we can keep this minimized, but it looks like it might be a big one, unfortunately.
So I have, thank you.
Were you done back there? You were done? No, thanks.
Nothing tonight, thank you, Mayor.
Nothing tonight.
F?
Yeah, just one thing. I was delighted to see the email earlier today that we're going to be starting the video recording of our council meetings tonight. Although when I look around and I don't see any cameras, it just leads me to a few questions. One of which is like, what is the setup to capture the video? And then also, where can residents see it afterwards? And what's the live streaming situation of it?
The camera's focused on you, so don't worry, we got that covered.
Trying to decrease viewership. I guess.
Yeah, there's just a simple, small camera up there. It's broadcast on live YouTube, and then residents can see it on YouTube.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, and let me just add to that then since this will be the first one, and of course, there's always some glitches for residents who are viewing it either now or later when they have time. If you can send us your feedback on it, like what do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? What can be improved? Please do send that in to us. We need to hear it. Thanks.
Go.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Javari?
I'm just going to one thing that, just want to make you aware of things. You must be ahead of talking to Brian, that this is after 1.5 years, people are ready to go out. So don't underestimate whenever fireworks comes, people are ready. They're going to picnic out there. They're going to do so many things. So don't underestimate the situation. But people are already talking one another. They just want to picnic. And then particularly the time comes, people really rush out there. So just want to make sure, I know you are way ahead of everybody here, but just wanted to make sure that we are prepared for this kind of stuff. And the second, are we going to have that VIP tent over there? Okay, that's all.
I have just, we've talked about allowing golf carts, I think, representative come in about allowing golf carts on our streets. I've fleshed it out as much as I can with the police department, and they're not wholeheartedly against it. But we would need to make a motion to get some legislation written to mirror the Ohio revised code. So what I'd like to make the motion, if everybody's okay with it, if we have any issues before I do so, let's talk about it now. About allowing golf carts on our streets. They have to be licensed, they have to be equipped, belts, lights, brake lights. And they would only be allowed on our streets.
So they couldn't be on any street where the speed limit was higher than 35?
Not be every department. They can cross.
They could cross but not go with traffic. And will there be an inspection process?
Yes, so right now, there are a couple in our, they had to go to Green Hills. Talking to Officer Smart Route, tell it's a 5 or 10 minute thing. Fingerprints, which I think 3 hours a week that they will do fingerprints. Have no fee. Don't see this as being a big volume of people with golf carts. I would think maybe the average more popular. But if we have issues before I would make a motion, I just would like to.
I have one more,
Well,
I have one more silly question. These are street golf carts, right? They wouldn't be ones that people would be wanting to use on Blue Ash Golf Course. They would not be permitted to do that.
After, Rick, you're gonna use a golf cart.
Okay, thank
You
you.
cannot even drive them to the back of the facility.
Okay.
Parking wise, they park just as.
Well, I have a question. What rules do we have in place right now for the 35 mile? Say Reed Harbor Highway, say somebody gets on Reed Harbor Highway with the golf cart. What's the enforcement? Do we have rules in place for that right now?
I would assume we would be ticketed, just
But
like
there's
if
some
I drove
should-
my lawnmower, up Reed Harbor Highway in the street.
Yeah, but you're the mayor.
It's worse, trust me, you get more trouble.
No, I'm just, kidding aside. I'm just curious if we do have regulations and or rules in place to take care of anybody that wants to get on Reed Harbor Highway and be foolish. I think right now we got signs that say under 25 brake horsepower or something like that.
The
Would
answer,
the same
Joe,
thing
is,
apply to the golf cart?
the answer is, Joe, if we were to write the legislation, it will be addressed as part of that, but yes, currently there are restrictions on Reed Harbor Highway already, and so it's the officer's discretion to write a ticket or not.
Yeah, so Joe, if you operate in violation of that ordinance, I don't remember, it's a minor misdemeanor or an it's some kind of.
I was just wondering if we had to make a new rule.
No, you don't, it's part of that legislation, like David said.
That was the only question I had.
One question I would have is, if we did generally I'm for it, because I think streets are for more than just vehicles. People you can walk along the side of streets. I think that's good. Golf carts are fine with me. Skateboards, for that matter, are fine with me, within reason. But if we did golf carts, would we have the discretion to not allow them on a 35-mile-per-hour street, or would we have to allow it on all 35 or less?
I understand it, and Council Pacheco, correct me, we could make it less. The problem's gonna be then how you get in Summit Park. Because the road's going to Summit Park. Milford, parts are 35. Really be cutting off.
And with
Yeah, because that's the reason I asked on that is, as I wrote to Mr. Wittenberg when he wrote to me, is generally I'm fine with it. Though, as I noted that, I'm more fine with people using golf carts on streets that aren't very busy at the time. I'm less keen on people doing it at 8:10 a.m. on Kenwood, so those are things to
Can't
look
be
at.
any worse than the bicycles. You got the bicycles riding the suicide lane.
Yeah, the bikes that go up Cooper Road at 7 miles an hour past the neighborhood and have a line of traffic behind them. To me, they have absolutely no protection. They're able to very easily go on the sidewalk. They won't. I think you're a hell of a lot safer in a golf cart with all the safety features, and turn signals and brake lights, and you can be seen. Allow a 10-speed bike to go up Cooper Road. Has to be safer.
But you did bring up a perspective, you can regulate it to minimize it and put it on less busy roads, but as the mayor said, when we looked at it, it would be very difficult, practically speaking, because there's really only two roads that go north and south in Blue Ash, and that's Kenwood and Reed Harbor Highway. So we know Reed Harbor Highway's out. I think there will be some conflict between semis coming down for Kroger versus a golf cart pulling in the Creek Road near Lee's area. But, that's a decision you guys have to make. Maybe you're just saying, no, certain parts of town you just can't get to, so to speak. So that's something you have to look at. If you wanted us to show you a map of where you could restrict it, it's just, you have the biggest challenge is you only have two roads that go north and south in Blue Ash. If you were in the southern end of town, you're probably okay, but if you're in the northern end of town, you would have challenges coming down, and maybe you want to phase it in and only allow it on certain streets and then later open it up. Just something to think about. You don't have to rush into that.
Or are time restrictions allowed?
I don't know that answer.
I did not see those specifically addressed in any, so there's a bunch of people that do this, and I've looked at probably 15. including the closest are Evendale. I'm blanking on the other one, Sharonville, and there's one in Harrison too, which is not that close. Terrace Park is the other one. And they did not have hours, but the statute provides that we can restrict more, so I would define that as an hours restriction. So the answer is, I think it would be okay, but I'll confirm.
If they
So-
pay 20 miles an hour up to Cincy Parks in Montgomery, about $9,000. 20 miles an hour.
Where they top out.
At the top speed.
So to be clear, underspeed and low-speed vehicles, which is what we're talking about, what they're defined under the revised code, can go up to 25.
Yeah, like Rick said, let's keep going.
But they can't go over. So if you have a, you know, the Lamborghini golf cart that goes 40, it wouldn't be covered by this. It's already a vehicle as the road goes and would already either violate or follow the rules of the road generally that we all follow.
So to clarify, if you have a car that goes that fast, could you go on Reed Hartman Highway?
I would,
As what the ORC looks at.
I think they have a weight, yeah, David's right. I think they have a weight problem there. They're not,
It's 3,000 pounds, but I can't imagine, there's a lot of cars that aren't 3,000.
yeah, I think they would have a weight problem, Mark, but I don't know, but they would not be allowed under the underspeed or low speed, because that's, once you go over 25, you're no longer an underspeed or low speed vehicle.
I mean, I don't even think anybody wants them on Reed Hartman under any circumstances.
I'm okay with it. Back to the parking issue. I think a lot of people that use golf carts are also generalized because they're handicapped, maybe. They get their own little little card and park it in the handicap spots. And how do you, is that where we're going with this, or?
Lee, it's a great question. It's the first in this discussion that and the answer is I don't know. I will say this, in all the legislations that I've read, that hasn't been in there either. Jeff's question about hours and your question about where they park or how they're treated with respect to placards.
Yeah, I'm assuming they can just take the placard out of their
I don't
car and
know
put
if
it in
they-
there is what I've been doing. I don't see that as a big issue.
Well, I don't know if they can do that because I think the placard, well, I don't know if they can do it or not. The question is, I don't know.
One thing I'd like to bring up is I would imagine somebody mentioned Daventry and Summit Park, and I'm assuming that would probably be a popular outlet for these. We'd have to make some strong considerations about permitting them in Summit Park and whether or not it's a vehicle or a bicycle and how it's treated, because we've already had golf carts parked underneath the canopy with the key in them, and all it takes is somebody to come in, 5-year-old step inside of them and get on that gas pedal. So that's something that we just want to walk around as a Parks and Rec staff too.
That's a great point, though, again, they'd be already defined as underspeed or low speed, so they shouldn't be allowed in the park anyway, but it might not be. It might be a smart thing to add that to the legislation.
I would add to that, though, it's less a traffic issue, and that's a park maintenance issue. And so we just wouldn't permit it. We'd probably have to spend some time fighting people, especially some people in MI or Daventry think they can just cut through and use the trails. We probably have to spend some time educating that, but it's not a traffic and it's not a street, those are not street road or legal roads, so to speak. So those are park pathways and things like that. So we would have the ability to write them not as a traffic code violation, but probably as a trespassing.
You're saying specifically not going on the paths, the sidewalks. They
Paths, sidewalks, I would
They
say.
could park in the parking lot.
They could park in the parking lot off of the road, but yeah, we would, I can't imagine unless you guys really want to overcome that objection. I can't imagine we would remotely want to encourage that because there'd just be so many conflicts out in the park. But I do think we'll have some enforcement challenges.
I think, I never thought of that. I always thought this is a vehicle. You want to be on the roads, it's a road vehicle. End of story.
So I do think that's a good point in terms of education we require. What you're talking about, the underspeed or low speed, you're only talking about the streets. We're not talking about everywhere else. This is not your golf cart that we're legislating. You can ride every friggin' place that you want to. It's only on the streets. It's only how you say it is. And these are specifically defined under speed and low speed vehicles. Now, whether somebody drives their golf cart, if somebody drives their golf cart, a golf cart like you have over at the Blue Ash Golf Course, and you're on the road, that's a violation. That would not be legalized by this. Nor would, as David points out, with the underspeed or low speed vehicle that has to be changed, registered, or not changed, but inspected and registered. If you take that on a pass somewhere, that would also be a violation.
Like driving a car on the
Right. Right.
Car. I mean, we just have.
It is a car. It's just certain, that's right. It's only certain streets it's allowed.
Or would you have something?
Mark, you made a motion.
I got it. I just wanted. I wanted to see our bid right. But then obviously it's got to get done. Gonna make a motion to direct city administration to propose the most uncomplicated legislation necessary to mirror the Ohio Revised Code, allowing licensed and equipped underspeed and limited speed vehicles to golf carts on Blue Ash roads. 5 miles per hour. Possibly an active fee for a one-time prior to initial license. Add anything?
Action.
No, I'll second the motion, because really all we're doing is directing them to write legislation, but we're the legislators, so when the legislation comes to us, we can always fix it up however we need to fix it up.
Right, and I think
there will be
also-
some things.
We would want to look and see what other communities are doing and what's, you know, because it's nice not to be the leading edge of this. You just take advantage of others' experiences.
You have a second?
Aye.
All opposed? Last thing, I had some citizens in a couple meetings ago about the golf maintenance facility. I am still talking to them. Incredibly impressed at how I had the 2 mornings birds and the birds. Ryan Scott's group is extraordinarily kind of. One of the things that was brought up was to start all maintenance later in the day. That would cut off a lot of tee times. I would have some estimates how many that would be, and those would be residents because they get the early tee time. All 4 Blue Ash residents that kind of are golfers. I'm going to continue to talk to them and that one over there is as innocuous as neighbors realize that they're trying. The house is where the house is. You bought the house. Anyway, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not one to throw anybody else into it.
Well, I was there today and the silence was deafening.
There's a problem with when we load the backup beeps. That is something that I think all of us. Verse is deafening. Right now, that's all I'm going to say about that. We're talking and we're awfully nice, I gotta say. With that, I'm going to move into executive session. We have a couple of issues: property acquisition to consider the purchase of property for public purposes, or for the sale of property at competitive bidding. Disclosure of information, they're competitive for bargaining advantage. Personal private interest is at first. We're also going to have an issue of personnel matter to consider the appointment employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public So I will ask for a motion into executive session.
Second.
Amy, will you please call? the roll?
Councilman Capell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Cole?
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari?
Yes.
Councilman Lee?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider? Mayor Serkin?
Yes.
7 yeses.
Where are we gonna meet?